My name is Madison Rossi. I am a spiritual healer, teacher, and guide in the lineage of King Solomon, certified by the Modern Mystery School. And I've been training with the Mystery School for almost a decade. And I think what drew me initially to the path, I'd have to go way back to childhood. I was a kid who was calling home probably at least once a week to go home with a stomach ache, right? All of these nervous, anxiety, anxious feelings that I didn't know what to do or how to process. And growing up, I think I realized I was a sensitive kid, I was an empathic kid, and I realized pretty early on that adults were constantly lying to themselves and constantly lying to each other. And it made me feel extremely unsafe in the world. And then moving into middle school and high school, that really developed into anger. And I was protesting, I was walking out of school, I felt really angry about this world that was filled with adults that didn't know what they were doing. And it felt really messed up, and I felt like I was on this conveyor belt moving into this adulthood that didn't feel safe, it didn't feel well organized, it didn't feel like it really served the people, right? And everybody else just seemed to have no problem with what was going on. Meanwhile, I was like, what is what is happening? I really don't want to be entering into this world that I feel is so dysfunctional, and at the same time I feel so helpless and not able to have an effect on. So that led me to, again, a lot of anger issues. It led me to some self-harm. It led me to starting to experiment and abuse drugs and alcohol as a way to try to manage and handle all of these feelings that I was having and all these feelings that I had about the world, and I didn't know how to process. I didn't know what to do. So I ended up in nursing school because I thought, well, if I want to help people, I could be a nurse. That's one way to help people. And I ended up in working in psychiatric care. And I noticed that, when you were admitted to the hospital, whether that was a psychiatric hospital or a regular hospital, is that you get admitted to the hospital, and the first thing that happens is you're stripped of your dignity, right? You have no free will, you have no choice, you're told where to go. And also you live in this really unhealthy environment with not being able to get good sleep and, not really good food and all of this and all of these things. So all of that's just compiled onto this feeling of the world not being safe, not being set up for success for anybody really. And then just being on this conveyor belt of this hamster wheel, the same problems over and over again with seemingly no solution, which left me a feeling of real powerlessness, hopelessness. And again, the drug use was just really ramping up, and using all of these different, oftentimes self-destructive ways to handle how I was feeling and what was going on in the world. And that led me to a breaking point with my physical health, to where I was sort of brought to my knees, and being atheist, having completely turned my back on God and the church and all of that, being brought to this point where I was like, God, if you're there, if you could take away this pain, if you could make me healthy again, I will be a better person. I will try harder to be a better person. Got my physical health back, and started getting back to work, but still definitely had this sense of I'm very broken. I'm still very, very broken. Even though I'm physically healthy, I was still not okay. And I ended up trying spirituality and spiritual healing kind of because it was the only stone I hadn't turned over yet. It was the only thing I hadn't tried yet. And I had taken yoga classes, and I knew that breathing deeply helped a lot, and had, kind of gotten to that state of relaxation with yoga. And I was really skeptical. I was really skeptical in the beginning, and I didn't want it to work. I couldn't wrap my mind around, having a crystal wand, a stick, and a rock, and that was going to activating my spiritual DNA was going to solve all of my problems. I couldn't wrap my head around that. But over the course of that first year or two, and I received life activation, full spirit activation, empower thyself initiation, and the universal Hermetic Kabbalah Ascension program, my life really started changing. And I still wasn't convinced, even after all that, wasn't convinced that, well, maybe my life just would have changed anyway. Like, who's to say that it was the energy healing? Like, it could be anything. Like, maybe I just changed. Yeah, okay. But over the course of that year, or those year and a half, the addictions just kind of stopped. And the self-abusive behavior stopped. The relationships that were just built around this negative lifestyle stopped. All of these things just started to fade away. And I couldn't help but acknowledge the shift that was happening within me. And even still, I wasn't convinced that it was the mystery school, that it was specifically this work that I was doing. But through the process of Kabbalah, I had a spiritual experience in that moment. It really felt like I was introduced to a higher existence, a higher way of being. And I had done hallucinogens in the past. I had peered through the veils of existence with DMT and acid and mushrooms and all those. Like I had peered through the veils of existence and witnessed the machinery of God, but had nothing that I could bring back to my life that could make my life better. But in the process of Kabbalah, I had implanted within me a knowing of the higher intelligence of God, of source. I had that energy implanted in me in a way that I was permanently shifted after that. I was not the same person. I had this elevating experience that allowed me to look at everything that was going on in my life with a new set of eyes and allow myself to tell myself the truth, right? And going back to childhood, seeing all these adults that were lying to themselves and lying to each other because they couldn't tell themselves the truth about themselves, right? And then growing into that, being on that conveyor belt. And then finally, through the process of the path of activation, initiation, and the Kabbalah ascension, being able to tell myself the truth about myself, and in a very loving way that allowed me to release the grip of pain, suffering, attachment, struggle, right? And separation, right? To finally relax enough to let that go. And with that process of letting go, the sort of like the magnetic repercussion of that was then receiving, being able to let go of that heaviness, which then brought in all of this lightness, all of this goodness, this purity, this truth of who I am, which is good and worthy and capable and powerful. And this is all hindsight 2020. All of this was happening, but I didn't associate it with Kabbalah at the time. I went and tried some other stuff. I went and got Reiki certified and did some shamanic journeying and did some other things. Nothing really had the potency of the mystery school. So eventually came back to the mystery school and started taking more classes. And as soon as I re-engaged with the lineage and started receiving sessions and taking classes, it started accelerating again. My life started accelerating again. The healing started accelerating again. I started to see myself in ways that I couldn't see myself before, and see others, and release and receive, and all of this alchemy that was going on. That is the process of healing. And at that point, I was sold. I was just sold. The skeptic was turned. Not wanting to believe, and then having undeniable, irrevocable evidence to go from being doubtful to knowing that this magic is real, the power of the activations, of the initiations, of the rituals, it works. Works regardless of whether you believe in them or not, and it will transform your life. And there was no way that I was going to receive all of this healing, all of this transformation, all of this empowerment, all of this goodness that came into my life. There was no way I was going to receive this and not give it to another person. So that's when I decided to attend Healers Academy, learn how to facilitate life activation for another person, became a certified healer, a certified teacher, and eventually a guide to be able to offer this Empower Thyself initiation to others. And I feel extremely passionate about this work and making this work available to others, not just because of the results that it did for me, but because I have an awareness and knowing that the world will be made a better place when each of us individually can experience the truth of who we are and have the freedom to express that out into the world. We end up living lives that feel dull, disconnected, lifeless, lacking purpose, because we have not received ourselves from ourselves. We haven't had that face-to-face meeting with our true essence in spirit. And spirit is the truest and highest essence of who we are. Everything in the universe is made out of energy, and we are no different. And when we develop and strengthen and really embody that essence, that energetic essence of who we are, and establish that as the foundation of our experience in life, that is how we can create a life of goodness. And if we have a multitude of people who are living in the embodiment, in the foundation of that goodness, in that expression of their higher selves, we will create a better world. So going back to that high school age Madison that felt completely disempowered and hopeless, moving on this conveyor belt towards an adulthood and a reality that she wanted no part of. Now I stand in this same world with tools of change, with agents of transformation, where I can sit in a room with another person and have them present whatever problem they have, whatever issue they're dealing with, whatever thing is holding them back. And I can offer them the key of life activation. I can offer them the key of Empower Thyself initiation, and they can receive that key into their lives, into their mind, into their energy field, to open up the answer to whatever they need, the healing to whatever they need. Because all healing is self-healing. And I provide the agent of transformation, the alchemy that is needed for one to heal themselves or change themselves, uplift themselves, transform themselves, to be able to release and to receive and live a life of greater purpose. So I can wake up every day knowing that I'm effectively helping the world to change. And you can have the same, maybe you're also a healer, maybe you're also a guide, or maybe you're supposed to go off and find a cure for a disease, or cure, or solve hunger, whatever it is, whatever your key, whatever your piece of world peace, of change, of creating a better world, whatever your puzzle piece is, these tools are here to help you activate it, anchor it, embody it, and live it sustainably, to go out there, achieve and maintain your higher purpose. And together, we can create a better world. My name is Madison Rossi. I'm a spiritual healer, teacher, and guide, certified by the Modern Mystery School in the lineage of King Solomon. I have a healing center here in Woburn, Massachusetts. And if you want to live a better life, if you want keys to living life alive, message me for a consultation. Thank you for watching.